This is NTD Evening News. Live from our global headquarters in New York City, here's Tiffany Meyer.
Good evening, and thank you for joining us tonight. 5 people were killed in northern Israel when Hezbollah terrorists fired missiles into the country. Meanwhile, Israeli ground operations in Lebanon have uncovered Hezbollah weapons and hideouts. NTD's Jason Perry has the update.
On Thursday, Israeli forces released video of soldiers patrolling on foot in southern Lebanon. And during their operations, they reported finding observation posts, weapons and ammunition hidden in houses, and more weapons and military vests concealed in a destroyed vehicle. This week, they also reported finding a Hezbollah underground command center and an underground site containing half a ton of explosives.
As you can see, in the storage facility, there are RPGs, grenades, explosive kits, personal equipment, and military vests, enough for every fighter. This place is basically meant for getting prepared. Radwan fighters were supposed to come here and prepare with all of the weapons that were to be used against us.
Israel also reported killing dozens of terrorists in close-quarters combat, as well as striking a launcher, which resulted in secondary explosions after the strike. Israel also issued more evacuation notices for Lebanese residents before unleashing a series of airstrikes in the cities of Tyre and Baalbek. Baalbek is known for being home to ancient Roman temples. Israeli government spokesperson David Mencer said that Israeli forces will not strike those historical sites. Meanwhile, on Thursday, Hezbollah terrorists in Lebanon fired missiles into northern Israel, which killed 5 people, including 4 foreign workers and an Israeli farmer, according to Israeli media. One worker who was seriously injured was airlifted to a hospital in Haifa, according to a hospital spokesperson. Many are wondering how much longer the fighting will continue. On Wednesday, Lebanon's prime minister said he hoped to see a ceasefire in the coming days. And on Thursday, Israel's Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu told U.S. envoys that countering security threats from Lebanon and returning displaced people to northern Israel would be key elements of any ceasefire deal with Lebanon. Netanyahu also addressed a graduating class of new military officers, and he brought up Iran.
Israel today has more freedom of action in Iran than ever. We can reach any place in Iran as necessary. The supreme goal I gave to the Israel Defense Forces and the security branches is to prevent Iran from achieving a nuclear weapon.
But not everyone is ready to join and serve in the Israeli military. Ultra-Orthodox Jewish men recently protested against joining the military, which is compulsory for most Israelis. Israel's government spokesperson David Mencer said that 777 Israeli soldiers have died since the war began. Jason Perry, NTD News.
North Korea today is saying it successfully tested an intercontinental ballistic missile. According to the regime, it's the most powerful ICBM it ever launched. The U.S. and South Korea are already responding. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastar has the latest.
The U.S. and South Korea on Thursday conducting a joint military drill. This comes in response to North Korea. The regime on Thursday said it tested its most powerful ICBM yet. According to South Korea, the missile was flying for almost 90 minutes. It flew over 600 miles and splashed down in the sea near Japan. North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called the largest test ever a proper military response. He added it can be considered a warning to enemies, which have allegedly been threatening the North. Tensions between the North and South have been rising fast this month. New satellite footage released on Thursday now shows new trenches are being built by both North and South Korea near the border. Amid this sharp increase in tensions, Korean officials are in D.C. on Thursday. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin and Secretary of State Antony Blinken are both meeting their Korean counterparts. Now they're talking about North Korea's involvement in the Russia-Ukraine conflict and about the situation on the Korean peninsula. Blinken strongly condemned North Korea's ICBM launch while speaking alongside the other officials.
The latest launch of many and other provocative actions that it's taken. Flagrant violations all of multiple UN Security Council resolutions. All countries should be demanding that the DPRK cease these destabilizing actions
He added that he already spoke with Japanese officials to plan a response to North Korea's test launch. Blinken also said that as many as 8,000 North Korean troops are already in Russia's Kursk region. According to Austin, this highlights Moscow's growing desperation.
This is the first time in more than a century that Russia has welcomed foreign troops onto its own soil.
Austin also suggested that Russia is one of the last countries that should be illegally cooperating with North Korea.
A permanent member of the UN Security Council is violating Security Council resolutions that it agreed to.
Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky strongly criticizing allies on Thursday. He accuses them of showing, quote, zero response to Russia's alliance with North Korea. Zelensky says that because of that, Russia will now strengthen ties with Pyongyang even further. Ariane Pastar, NTD News.
Former President Trump stumping in the Southwest as he vows to win New Mexico, a state no Republican has won in 2 decades. He's speaking to Latino voters on the issues of the economy and the border. NTD's Iris Tao has more from the battleground state of Wisconsin.
After stumping here in the key swing state of Wisconsin on Wednesday, former President Trump on Thursday heads to the Southwest campaigning in New Mexico, followed by Nevada and Arizona. While he admits that he's in New Mexico to mainly boost his credentials with Latino voters, he also vows to win the traditionally blue state, which no Republican presidential candidate has ever won since 2004.
Thank you very much. Look, I'm only here for one reason. They all said, don't come. I said, why? You can't win New Mexico. I said, look, your votes are rigged. We can win New Mexico. We can win New Mexico.
With just 5 days left before the election, Trump is stepping up his economic messaging by making a new vow to remove all regulations that he says are driving up the cost of goods. He also vows that he will create a new cabinet position tasked exclusively with lowering the price of living. He's also appealing to voters with the issue of border, using New Mexico, a border state, as the backdrop for the message.
One of the biggest reasons we will win this state is that you have among the worst border problems of any state in America. And I am the only one that knows how to fix it. I already did fix it. 4 years ago, you didn't have a problem.
Meanwhile, as Trump claims that he has won New Mexico twice and tells voters that their votes are rigged, the Vice President Kamala Harris's campaign is pushing back by accusing the Trump campaign of pushing misinformation. Vice President Harris is also criticizing Trump's latest comments that he will protect the women of our country, whether they like it or not. And on Friday, Trump is set to return to Michigan and here in Wisconsin for more rallies. Reporting from Milwaukee, Iris Tao, NTD News.
In a town hall with college students in North Carolina today, Trump's running mate J.D. Vance urged Gen Z to vote to avoid World War III and a potential draft. He pointed to the South China Sea and tensions between China and Taiwan as areas of particular concern.
The solution here to prevent war is to make it as costly as possible for the Chinese to invade Taiwan in the first place. Everyone will tell you that if the Chinese establish territory in Taiwan, if they establish a beachhead in Taiwan, it becomes very hard and a lot of people get killed. So you prevent them from doing that. And the way you prevent them from doing that is to make sure they've got enough weapons to defend themselves. Again, prevention is the best way to stop a war.
The VP nominee told students, quote, "We are sleepwalking ourselves into World War III and that they might be drafted to fight it because of incompetent leadership." Vance said the Biden-Harris administration hasn't done enough to ensure China doesn't invade Taiwan. He argued that because the White House is sending so many resources to Ukraine, there's not enough for Taiwan, and that makes the Chinese regime more likely to invade the island. Vance promised that the situation would change with Trump as president. Meanwhile, Vice President Kamala Harris kicked off her 3-day tour campaigning in all 7 swing states. She started with stops in Arizona and Nevada. NTD's national correspondent Jason Blair has the update.
After doing rallies in 3 separate states on Wednesday, Vice President Harris sets off to visit all 7 battleground states between Thursday and Saturday. Her first visit was in Phoenix, where she hosted a rally with early voting ending on Friday evening. The Harris team says they want to motivate as many people as possible to vote before the deadline. Harris was joined by special guest Los Tigres del Norte, who performed a few songs. Harris made some remarks at the end of the event.
And if you are caring for an elderly parent, look, I took care of my mother when she was sick. If you are taking care of an elderly parent, I understand what you are experiencing, and my plan will cover the cost of care under Medicare for the seniors in your life who need help and support.
The vice president continues in Nevada, where early voting also ends on Friday. She has a rally in Reno, then one in Las Vegas, where singer Jennifer Lopez also will be delivering some remarks. Lopez, whose parents are from Puerto Rico, officially endorsed Harris on Sunday. The endorsement came after comedian Tony Hinchcliffe referred to Puerto Rico as a floating pile of garbage during a comedy stand-up routine at former President Trump's rally at Madison Square Garden. Lopez has since shared some of the vice president's plans to improve Puerto Rico's economy on Instagram. Hinchcliffe later clarified his routine, saying his joke was taken out of context and encouraged people to watch the whole set, saying, quote, "I made fun of everyone." Also on Thursday, Vice President Harris's running mate, Governor Tim Walz, is campaigning in battleground Pennsylvania. On Friday, the vice president will be going back to Wisconsin for a rally in Milwaukee. The campaign says that rapper Cardi B will also be delivering remarks. Jason Blair, NTD News.
Over 63 million Americans have voted early this election cycle, while in 2020, a little over 100 million cast their ballots early. According to the University of Florida's election lab, 7 battleground states account for 15 million early votes so far. 25 states report party affiliation data, including Arizona, Nevada, North Carolina, and Pennsylvania. Democrats have cast 38.8% of early votes. Republicans are close behind with 36% of early ballots cast so far. GOP voters have cast more in-person ballots, with 39.3% heading to the polls versus 31.6% for Democrats. More than 19 million Democrats have requested mail-in ballots, while 13.5 million Republicans have asked to vote by mail. Elon Musk's $1 million giveaways to swing state voters are safe, at least for now. A judge in Pennsylvania this morning declined to block it. Here's what Philadelphia District Attorney Larry Krasner's team said at the courthouse.
Elon Musk and his PAC, AmeriPAC, filed legal papers to have the case removed from this court to federal court, and we will proceed to federal court, and we will address the issues there and seek to have the matter remanded back to the state court. After all, this is a case that involves state law issues.
Judge Angelo Foglietta said he would place the lawsuit on hold while a federal court considers whether to take up the case. Musk was ordered to attend the court hearing this morning but did not appear. The Philadelphia DA filed a lawsuit against Musk and his pro-Trump America PAC. He argued they are running an illegal lottery scheme to influence voters and asked the judge to stop it. Musk's bid to move the case to federal court frees him to continue the giveaway because the matter likely won't be resolved until after Tuesday's election. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Michigan officials charge a Chinese citizen student with illegal voting. Meanwhile, Pennsylvania is investigating voter registration applications. NTD's Daniel Monahan has more on the cases.
The Michigan case involves a 19-year-old Chinese national, a student at the University of Michigan. He registered to vote on Sunday, signing a document vowing he was a U.S. citizen. The student later tried to retract the illegal vote. Detroit News reported that the vote can't be retracted. The student was charged with attempting to vote illegally and lying on a form to secure voter registration. Congressman John Molinar called on state leaders to take serious action against the Chinese Communist Party's attempts to influence the United States. Meanwhile, officials in York County, Pennsylvania, are investigating voter registration and mail ballot applications. Former President Trump wrote on Truth Social earlier this week that York County received thousands of potentially fraudulent voter registration forms and mail ballot applications from a third party. He also mentioned an investigation in Lancaster County. York County President Commissioner Julie Wheeler says her county received a large delivery containing thousands of election-related materials from a third-party organization. She added that the papers appeared to include completed voter registration forms, as well as mail-in ballot applications. Wheeler says if they find any suspected fraud, they will alert the district attorney's office. Pennsylvania Secretary of State Al Schmidt mentioned the investigations in York County and Lancaster County during a video briefing on Tuesday.
The department has been in touch with these counties from the very beginning to provide guidance to them as they conduct their investigations, and will continue to support them as needed.
Several days ago, officials in Lancaster County said they were investigating around 2,500 voter registration forms for possible fraud. They said the applications had fake names, incorrect addresses, and other problems. Those ballots are being linked to a large-scale canvassing operation in the state.
Ultimately, the county election offices and the investigative law enforcement agencies will determine whether any criminal charges are warranted.
Lancaster County District Attorney Heather Adams said at a news conference that 2 other unnamed counties received similar applications. She said election workers noticed that numerous applications had similarities. Adams said that although the investigation is ongoing, it appears to be an organized effort. Daniel Monahan, NTD News.
And NTD's Chris Bob spoke to a city clerk in East Lansing, Michigan about the Chinese student who's been charged with voting illegally at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. Take a look.
I want to step back and just say, the Ann Arbor City Clerk is a very dear friend of mine, and I reached out to her this morning. I think that what she did by immediately turning this matter over to law enforcement, by being very transparent about it, she did the right thing. In my experience, and I've got at least 30 elections under my belt, and I've been doing this since about 2011. That is very, very, very rare that a person will register to vote who is not a U.S. citizen. But I can also tell you that when it does happen, it is prosecuted. So, we check IDs. People have to sign. A voter registration is a legal document, which is why this person can be prosecuted, because they are attesting when they sign that voter registration that they are a U.S. citizen. And so we require other things such as a driver's license number. If you're a Michigan resident, of course you don't have to have a driver's license in order to vote. So the other requirement would be the last 4 digits of a social security number. So those elements are almost always present on a voter application.
What was your initial reaction when you heard about that story?
I was concerned about my friend because I know she does great work, and clerks are working very, very hard. It's kind of like you can, do your best job to lock the door, but once in a while somebody's going to be able to break in. And so it's very unfortunate. I must say also I'm a little bit concerned about this student. Perhaps they didn't know what they were doing, and they've gotten themselves in a lot of trouble. They really have. And so this is not a partisan issue. This is all about, voter election integrity.
Many Arab Americans still don't know who to vote for in this year's presidential election, and that's as we are just days away from the election. NTD's Arian Pasdar has why many are still undecided.
They don't care about us. I don't care about either. So I'm not voting for either.
The conflict between Israel and Iran's proxies is having a huge impact on the way many Muslim Americans might vote this year. Support for Democrats has fallen sharply since Israeli military operations began in Gaza last year.
For now, 1,000,000% I'm not voting for Harris. She's supporting the funding. She goes on public TV, they send text messages saying, I'm pro-Israel, I'm supporting Israel.
The city of Dearborn in Michigan has one of the highest Muslim populations in the US. Many women use hijabs, and a lot of signs are in Arabic. A city council member explains why so many voters are still undecided.
Mostly what I hear from people is they feel hopeless. They feel like no matter who they vote for, they're not going to see the change that they need in policies from either the Trump or Harris administration.
In late August, the City Council on American Islamic Relations Advocacy Group conducted a poll. It found that 40% of Muslim voters in Michigan backed the Green Party's Jill Stein.
Jill Stein is important as it relates to the Middle East because she's an anti-war candidate.
The same poll also found that former President Trump was leading over Vice President Harris with 18 to 12 percentage points.
Arabs in the community, a lot of them are interested in voting for Trump because that way it shows the Democratic Party that they can't continue their foreign policies.
But despite not agreeing with Democrats, certainly not all Muslim Americans are interested in voting for Trump in this year's election.
We don't want him in office. This was always about a campaign to tell the Democratic Party, to tell the leaders of the Democratic Party and President Biden that they needed to shift on their Gaza policy, stop the killing of Palestinians.
Early voting has already started in Michigan and is going to be available through Sunday. People who haven't gone to the polls by then can do so on Election Day. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
The election is just 5 days away, and NTD will have special live coverage all night. Join Steve Lance and myself for the latest results and in-depth analysis. Tune in for The Nation Decides 2024 on November 5th at 6 p.m. Eastern right here on NTD. That's next Tuesday night. Don't miss it. Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Election lawsuits are piling up across America. This as we approach the final showdown of the 2024 race for the White House. Are we expecting more controversy in this election? NTD's Sam Wong was out on the National Mall in D.C. to hear from voters.
Who has your vote in this election?
Kamala Harris definitely has my vote. I was a lifelong Republican up until 2016. And in 2016, I just said what the Republican Party's about, and Trump just doesn't make any sense to me.
Trump. Gonna make America great again. He has all the right ideas.
I'm not going to tell you who I support. I think this country needs a bunch of compassion at this time.
Kamala has mine. I've already voted. And I want somebody with their feet on the ground and more stable.
I'm voting for President Trump and for his policies in relation to the economy and fixing gas prices.
Kamala Harris. She is the person who cares. She's a person who will be down to sit and talk with people.
President Trump. And the reason is because I remember the 4 years when he was president. We had a strong economy, good borders, and no one fooled around with the United States.
I have to go with former President Trump. And America is a land still where you can be your own entrepreneur with your own business better than anywhere else.
So given all the litigations that's happening surrounding the election right now, do you expect more controversy coming up?
There probably, but I think we'll manage through that.
I think it's very likely. That's why we got people as a whole got to get together and start praying against it.
Elections is all about controversy, until we find the right candidate, and the right candidate is going to be Kamala.
Everybody's on high alert after 2020, so it's going to be there's going to be more drama before this is over.
They're already trying to say that elections are Pennsylvania's already being stolen and there's cheating. We've had how many investigations over the last 8 years into voter fraud? There hasn't been voter fraud.
Unfortunately, yes. There's going to be controversy. I feel good going to the poll and voting. I feel the mail-in should be when you can't make it there.
I think that there will be more controversy if he doesn't win. I think that there's no way he'll accept a loss.
I hope we have a clean election. Maybe all this rhetoric will settle down. Everybody start getting along again and have a good world to live in the United States of America.
Joining us now to discuss potential election controversies and lawsuits related to the election is Hans von Spakovsky. He's a senior legal fellow at the Heritage Foundation and manager of the Heritage Foundation's Election Law Reform Initiative. Hans, thank you so much for joining us. Great to see you again now with the election just days away. What are you watching in the legal realm?
Well, we have all kinds of problems cropping up, everything from the Chinese student in Michigan that was able to vote, which you covered earlier, to Lancaster County in Pennsylvania discovering 2,500 what they consider to be fraudulent voter registrations submitted to them, which fortunately they caught. Otherwise, if those individuals had gotten registered, many of them fictitious, could have resulted in fraudulent ballots being cast. But we also have litigation going on. As you know, we just got a recent decision from the Supreme Court telling Virginia, yes, it can take non-citizens off the voter rolls. And there are other lawsuits still going on around the country.
And one case that is getting a lot of attention lately is around Elon Musk's PAC, where he's been giving out $1 million a day for registered voters in key swing states who sign his petition. Now, Philadelphia's DA filed a lawsuit against this, saying it's illegal. Now, you actually have a piece out on this saying the legal experts going after Musk are wrong. Tell us about that. Why isn't this illegal?
Well, for example, the lawsuit in Philly by the local DA is claiming that this is an illegal lottery under Pennsylvania state law. But I've actually read his complaint, and he undercuts his own claim. And the reason for that is very clear. Pennsylvania law has set out that there are 3 requirements to prove somebody's running an illegal lottery. One, that there is a prize given. Well, we've got that $1 million. That's true. Second, that there's a random selection of the winner. We've got that also. But the third essential element is that participants in the lottery have to pay consideration. That's the exact wording of previous court cases. They have to pay consideration to participate. In other words, they have to buy a ticket. They have to spend money to be able to participate in the lottery. That clearly isn't happening here. You don't have to purchase a ticket. You don't have to pay Elon Musk a single cent to participate. So under very clear law in Pennsylvania, this is not an illegal lottery. In fact, what it is the local DA, who's very political, trying to get public attention politically for what he's doing. It's just not it's a frivolous lawsuit.
And Hans, we are seeing headlines about, say, the burning ballot drop boxes in Portland and Vancouver, partial passwords to the voting machines in Colorado leaked online, and as you mentioned, 2,500 ballots in Lancaster, Pennsylvania, under investigation for potential fraud here. Given how close the polls are, where do you see all of these going?
Well, you know, a lot is going to depend on how close this election is. If we have extremely small margins in various states, then some of these issues could make a difference. The burning drop boxes in places like Oregon show why this relatively new phenomena of allowing drop boxes is a very bad idea. There's no reason for them. Putting a unguarded, unsurveilled receptacle for absentee ballots out on the street invites this kind of problem. When you drop your ballot into a ballot box in a polling place, you're not going to have to worry about somebody putting a firebomb in it, which is one reason why people should vote in person, whether it's on election day or at an early voting site.
And I want to touch on one of the cases you brought up earlier, the ruling in Virginia on clearing the voter rolls by the Supreme Court. What is your reaction to that ruling?
I think the reaction of most people is that's common sense. They can't believe that the Justice Department went to court to try to tell the state of Virginia that it couldn't remove individuals who are not U.S. citizens. And keep in mind, these are all individuals who self-identified as non-citizens when they went in to get a driver's license. This is, look, the decision by the Supreme Court was just over Virginia, but keep in mind, this is such a big issue across the country that on Monday, 25 states filed an amicus brief with the Supreme Court asking the court to rule against the Biden Justice Department and in favor of Virginia.
And Hans, zooming out a bit here, how do we ensure that voters have confidence in election integrity?
Well, that has been a problem since the 2020 election. But again, it depends on the state. States that have actually put in good reforms like Georgia, you'll find that the polling shows that people there actually have a fairly good confidence in the election process there. Other states that have not put in reforms, I think people don't have the same amount of confidence. That includes places like California and New York, where the rules are so loose that you can go in to vote and they won't ask you for an ID. So you could go in and ask for the name of, put in the name of just about any registered voter, and they'll give you a ballot in that person's name without asking any questions. That does not inspire confidence.
Hans von Spakovsky from the Heritage Foundation, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
It's widely expected that Republicans will gain control of the Senate regardless of how the presidential race shapes up. But why is that? NTD's Melina Weiskup joins us to break down the numbers.
34 Senate seats are up for grabs this cycle, most of which are held by Democrats. Republicans only need a net gain of 2 seats to take control of the upper chamber. That means they need to hold on to the 49 seats they currently have and gain 2 more. But it's highly likely that they will be able to do that. I say that because West Virginia is all but secured by Republicans. Democrats have essentially let the seat go. Republican candidate Jim Justice is leading by a large margin in the polls. Another area Republicans are likely to flip is in Montana with John Tester's seat. Democrats have tried desperately to hold on to this seat, but it being a Trump-won state, an area that Trump won by 16 percentage points in 2020, his name back at the top of the ticket, it may be a long shot for Democrats to keep the seat blue. So just with West Virginia and Montana alone, Republicans would be able to secure a bare bones majority in the upper chamber. That's even without winning any of the 5 toss-up races. The next state Republicans are highly likely to win is over in Ohio. The Democrat and Republican candidates have traded leads in the polls throughout this entire season, and it's also a Trump-won state and home to the vice presidential candidate, J.D. Vance. Democrats are trying to offset these likely GOP wins by throwing everything they have into races like Florida and Texas, but with those being solid red states with very popular candidates, those efforts may not be fruitful. So with all of this said, regardless of how the presidential race turns up, it's highly likely Republicans will take control of the Senate next year. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weiskup, NTD News.
Former President Trump and Vice President Harris campaigned in Arizona and Nevada this week. The latest polls show Trump with a narrow lead in both states. But Democratic Senate candidates are ahead of their Republican counterparts. Our Washington correspondent, Luis Martinez, has more on these crucial races.
Former President Donald Trump is campaigning in the states of Arizona and Nevada, not just to shore up support for his bid to return to the White House, but also to clear a second path for Senate Republicans to flip the upper chamber of the U.S. Congress. According to the latest polls from Real Clear Politics, the Senate races in the states of Arizona and Nevada are being led by the Democratic candidate. In the state of Arizona, we have Congressman Ruben Gallego leading by 4 points to fill in that seat that Kyrsten Sinema is leaving open. Kyrsten Sinema, independent senator, but that she used to caucus with Democrats. And in Nevada, we have incumbent Jackie Rosen defending her Senate seat, also leading in the polls with 4 points. But it's very interesting is to see is that the historical data of how these Senate seats fared 6 years ago when they were up for re-election last. Let's look at 2018. Here we have those Senate races. In the state of Nevada, we have Jackie Rosen. Back in 2018, this was big news. Jackie Rosen flipped the Senate seat of Nevada, defeating incumbent Dean Heller by a good margin, 5 points, healthy lead in the result of those elections. And in the state of Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema, independent senator, but who caucuses with Democrats, beat Republican Martha McSally by 3 points. Also a good enough lead back in 2018. Now, if we look at the presidential election in 2020 in the state of Nevada, we see that that lead in between Democrats and Republicans is tightening. Jackie Rosen, the Senate race in 2018, had a 5-point lead here. In the result of the presidential election, we can see that Joe Biden only has a less than a 3-point lead over the Republican candidate. If we look at the state of Arizona, the margins are even tighter. It's in the decimal points. Again, 2018, 2020, the margins are growing tighter. And now we have a very interesting factor, 2024. Already mentioned that Ruben Gallego, Democratic senatorial candidate for Arizona, and Jackie Rosen, Democratic senatorial candidate for Nevada, are leading in the Senate races, but it's Donald Trump who's leading in the presidential race in both those states. So it remains to be seen if this is a polling error or if Nevadans and Arizonans are splitting the ticket. Back to you.
A medical graduate student in China is dead after tragically falling from a building. His parents are demanding an investigation. They say his death wasn't suicide. They say it happened just after their son discovered evidence of a horrifying secret industry, live organ harvesting and transplant trade. Here's the story.
Lo Shuaiyu was a medical grad student studying in China's Central South University and working in a hospital affiliated with the university. This May, Lo was found dead after falling from a building, just 1 month after he reported a hospital and its doctors were harvesting organs from live patients and selling them. He said even students are involved. Because of his discovery, Lo's parents suspect their son's death could be linked to a cover-up or retaliation. That's after they found audio recordings and videos exposing the secret on Lo's computer.
Liu Xiangfeng, deputy director of the emergency center at Shangye Second Hospital in Hunan, instructed healthy individuals to undergo chemotherapy. Even a slight abnormality was treated as a tumor. If no tumor was found during surgery, healthy organs were removed directly.
Back in 2007, the World Organization to Investigate the Persecution of Falun Gong blacklisted the same hospital and dozens of its doctors for conducting forced live organ harvesting on Falun Gong practitioners. Wang Zhiruan, the head of the organization, said the crime is rooted in the Chinese Communist Party.
In recent years, these hospitals or transplant centers have been involved in the Chinese Communist Party's criminal campaign of forced live organ harvesting, openly engaging in the murder of innocent people for profit.
Several U.S. states, including Texas and Idaho, have introduced or issued legislation to restrict their residents from sourcing organ transplants from China.
Welcome back. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Google reportedly owes Russia more than 2 undecillion rubles. That translates to $20 trillion. You heard that right. The Kremlin says Google refused to pay fines for blocking pro-Russian channels on YouTube. This week, Russian state media reported that Google has to restore those channels or face mounting charges. If the fine isn't paid within 9 months, it starts to double every day. This unfathomable sum of money is more than the entire world's GDP. Dodgers fans in Los Angeles celebrated their World Series win last night, their first since 2020. Their thrilling 7-6 comeback marked a heartbreaking loss for the New York Yankees team, hoping to overcome a 3-game deficit. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the story.
The New York Yankees had hoped to become the first team to force a Game 6 after trailing 0-3 in a World Series. The Dodgers trailed 5-0 in the 5th inning last night and were down a run in the 8th. But LA pulled off the win with a sacrifice fly from All-Star Mookie Betts.
Having Ohtani, it was a great addition, but it was a team win overall with the Dodgers. Ohtani, yeah, he's great, but you got Mookie, you got Freeman, you got everybody on the team that contributed, especially Freeman. I'm pretty sure he got the World Series MVP right there. So, yeah, I'm just happy right here. Dodgers got the World Series, yeah.
The Dodgers found themselves in a hole almost immediately after slugger Aaron Judge delivered a 2-run homer in the 1st inning. Third baseman Jazz Chisholm Jr. sent another one over the wall immediately after. But the Dodgers ultimately prevailed 7-6 after a stunning comeback.
I was surprised the way they started playing. It got a little bit intense, but at the end, they showed everybody that hard work and dedication, become championship. And that's what LA did tonight.
Shohei Ohtani became the first player to hit 50 homers and have 50 stolen bases in a single season. The Japanese star played last night despite suffering a shoulder injury in Game 2. The 30-year-old credited his team for the win.
We were able to get through the regular season, I think, because of the strength of this team, this organization, and the success of the postseason is very similar to how we were able to pull it off during the regular season. Again, the strength of the organization. Extremely honored to be a part of this.
Last night's championship win was also a chance for the Dodgers to pull themselves out of a postseason slump. Dodgers first baseman Freddie Freeman struggled with a right ankle injury suffered late last month, but he became the only player to hit a home run in the first 4 games of a World Series and was named Most Valuable Player.
Seems like we hit every speed bump possible over the course of this year, and to overcome what we did as a group of guys, it's special.
Dodgers manager Dave Roberts was forced to go to the bullpen in their 11-4 loss in Game 4. Despite a slew of injuries, LA overcame.
We did go through a lot, Russ, but I'll still say that we still had the best record in all of baseball this year. And so it wasn't easy, but our guys fought and played every day the right way, played to win.
In Japan, Ohtani fans gathered to support their hometown hero, cheering him on to claim his first World Series title. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
Crowds rioted in the streets of Los Angeles last night after the Dodgers won the World Series. Police reported multiple arrests early this morning. Footage shows some fans throwing objects at police in Los Angeles as sirens blared. Rioters set a bus on fire, set off firecrackers, and looted local businesses. There were also several instances of street takeovers downtown. A police spokesperson said less than lethal munitions were used to control several hostile and violent crowds. Other footage showed fans standing on top of a bus waving a Dodgers flag. The Dodgers plan to commemorate their World Series championship tomorrow. A downtown parade will be followed by a celebration at Dodgers Stadium. The team said fans won't be able to attend either event because of logistical issues. And that's all for today's news. For round-the-clock coverage, visit us at ntd.com or download our NTD app. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Tiffany Meyer. Good night.